Okay, so I'll start off. So welcome everybody to this webinar. We're hugely excited about this across the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport world. We're launching our webinar series with the first one, not only for the Institute, but for the Central Asia region. Which is our webinar today on the effective crisis response for business in the current global situation we find ourselves in. I'm the host, so I'm Keith Newton, the Secretary General for the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport. Behind the scenes, you'll see Jasper Cook, who is my co-host, and Jasper will be dealing with any technical issues as we go through. We will soon all be Zoom experts, but for many of us, we're just embarking on the journey. So thank you for joining us today. It's very good to see that we've got a wide range of participants, and a very good evening to everybody wherever you are in the Central Asian region. The practicalities of the session: we have set aside an hour and 15 minutes. The plan is for us to have some introductions. We have a number of panelists and speakers who will be introducing themselves today. I'll introduce them in turn as we go through. We're not intending to have many slides for you. It will be mainly talking to you, but the intention is to have about 35 minutes across the range of speakers and panelists that we have. And then that will allow at least 30 minutes for questions and answers. And we've got a number of experts in supply chain here from within the region and outside the region who will take those questions towards the end of this session. Well, look, let me welcome you on behalf of Nerlan. I think that's the easiest thing to do. So Nerlan Igambayev is the president of CILT Kazakhstan, and one of the initiatives that Nerlan is joining us with here is this launch of information. We are collecting information globally, and we're working with our team in CILT Kazakhstan to enable professionals there in the region. So not just in Kazakhstan itself, but in the other 5 Central Asian republics, to share best practice and to share experiences on how we're dealing with the current crisis response across our industry. So a warm welcome from Nerlan. You will doubtless hear from him, if not today, certainly later, as this sequence of webinars continues. So in terms of our response, our response as an institute to the current crisis globally, we have been working now for over 3 weeks on our approach. Globally, you will see that the impacts are being felt, I think, in 85% of the world at the moment in terms of the virus itself. And that's having a huge impact in every walk of life, both from a personal health viewpoint, but also from a professional viewpoint. So very early on, our CILT president, Radzak Malak, made a call to action within the Institute for us to share information and best practice through a planned series of bulletins and webinars. And we have now already issued 2 comprehensive bulletins to all our members globally and through our countries, our 35 countries around the world. And this week sees the start of our webinar approach, with this one being the inaugural webinar in CILT. We follow that up next week with a focused webinar on the response again to the crisis, and that will be an international webinar. We would then continue that process over a number of weeks, collaborating with our corporate members, with the trade bodies that we're associated with governments, and with our members globally. What we're hoping and planning is that this approach will bring in a continuous stream of expertise and information that will enable you to respond in a very strong way in the different countries in the world, and particularly in the Central Asian region. So we're very keen to receive information, we're very keen to receive questions and issues that you're coming across in your working environment. Some businesses are still working flat out, others are not, but both of those bring very different responses, and it's our intention as CILT globally to ensure that we equip our members in the best possible way to meet the current crisis. So that really describes how we're intending to move as an organisation over the next few weeks, and today is all part of that, because it's about bringing people together, it's about discussing solutions, discussing issues, and applying the best knowledge that we've got. And I'm very pleased to have on the call today a number of experts who can give solutions from different perspectives in different sectors within the industry. As an organisation, we have people in very senior roles, whether that be in transport, public transport, whether that be in education, whether that will be in airlines, in air freight, and we intend to bring a number of those people to speak at our webinars and provide that advice. So do look out through CILT Kazakhstan. We have IBEC who will be coordinating that. IBEC Kurbanov will be coordinating that within Kazakhstan for you all. Now, I would like to switch from hearing me to hearing our next speaker, John Harris, who will just speak a little bit more about what we're doing in the Institute. John.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Keith. Just doing a check, everyone can hear me okay. A pleasure to be on the call with you today. I'm going to focus a little bit more in depth around the skills issues that we see ourselves confronted by. Again, as Keith said, it's a common issue right across the world, but different countries in different cultures are responding in different ways to our current crisis situation. Now, my own personal background, as well as working for CILT in the education role, I'm also have a background in urban planning and passenger transport. And we know that, again, this is causing quite big challenges globally. And even locally here in the UK, there are all sorts of issues going on at the moment around how to move people, particularly key workers and those working in the health sector, to be able to access hospitals and medical care safely themselves. What I want to do is allow you to ask some questions yourselves in a minute. The first thing I want to do is just explain a little bit about how CILT's core purpose is responding. So picking up on the webinar journey that Keith explained earlier, really it is these three things that we are about and we want to support the Central Asia region in achieving. So it's sharing the knowledge quickly and efficiently. It's understanding some of the skills gaps and some of the issues. And finally, looking at some common solutions that may be culturally and socially relevant for the Central Asia area, but obviously we can bring from other countries. So our local and international support, you've heard how we propose doing that, and that will unfold very closely with the local CILT team. Moving on to some of the topic areas that the audience on the webinar need help on. We're going to allow you some time to use the chat buttons, but also to ask some questions around the topic areas that you are finding the most challenging. We've already had feedback from right across the world. Issues such as human resource management, deployment of workforce that are used to working very much together in factories and in offices, having to almost have their world turned upside down in the way that they approach business and the way that they run, through to the threats and challenges, particularly for small enterprises and particularly micro businesses that may only employ 5 or 10 people. So we want to take this opportunity to listen to you and to understand the areas. They might be technical, they might be social, they might be about human resource aspects that you think the Institute need to respond to. Linked to that, there may be very specific issues in your country around labour constraints and where there may be skills deficits that need to be plugged quickly. And CILT are looking at ways that we can actually work collaboratively with other agencies to help plug those gaps. If we're looking at day-to-day operations, I guess that you can think of things that you have already began to think about and consider, and you've carried out your own risk management exercises for your business. However, there may be some real challenges that you see coming for your own operation. The best way for CILT to respond as a professional body is to make sure that our answers are relevant to the economy, to the culture, and to the social need of the country. So whether you are joining from Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, the Kyrgyz Republic, we need to understand a little bit more about how we can help you best. Going forward, a lot of the communications will actually be done in the common language of Russian. But to start off, we wanted to try and bring this international blend, and this is why we have the experts we have selected today. Now, if you look at the bottom of your screen, there are 2 ways that you can get in touch with us. If you want to understand a little bit more globally about what we are doing, there is an email there, pd@ciltinternational.org, and that comes through to the education and professional development team. And locally, importantly, the info@cilt.kz will get you straight in touch with IBEC and the team. So before I open up the conversation, I want to introduce to you one particular local speaker that's very kindly agreed to take part today. And that's Manas Yuzabayev. He is the Director of Logistics at Kazakhstan Recycling. And this is one of the key producers of paper, carton and packaging across Central Asia. And he's very kindly agreed to come on and share some of his experiences. So what I'm going to do now is let Manas take over and give some insight to his perspectives on the current crisis and how that is impacting on his business. And then we're going to allow a little bit of time for questions. So over to Manas.
Thank you very much, John. Good day, dear colleagues from Europe, and good evening for the colleagues from Kazakhstan, because we have now a 6:30 p.m. in Almaty and in Nur-Sultan, our capital, and looks like you have about noon or 1 p.m. in Europe, something like this. Let me say a few words from the beginning about myself. I am currently occupying position of Director of Logistics Department within Kazakhstan Recycling LLP. Kazakhstan, we may translate into English like paper. So paper recycling, the name of my company. And we are really the biggest producers of paper, carton and corrugated carton and packaging materials out of paper and carton. We are really the big one, and we are the leaders in our industry, this is for sure. we have about 2/3 of the overall market of Kazakhstan for the paper packaging materials. This is really huge. And we have very big production facilities. We operate 24 hours per day, 7 days per week. So without any stopping of our machines. And in total, we are hiring 700 employees and 105 of them within my logistics team. Well, of course, we do supply by carton packaging materials almost all of local producers. So we are talking about, of course, foodstuff products producers. For example, Foodmaster, who is producing milk products, and Foodmaster is a member of Lactalis Group within Kazakhstan. We supply, I have to say, 100% of the another local producers of foodstuff products. As I said already, we are the leaders. About 60–70% of the whole market of Kazakhstan, market for the paper packaging materials, we are controlling. And Kazakhstan is a key market for us. And we are also exporting our products, but mainly into Kyrgyzstan and into Uzbekistan, the neighboring countries to us. We produce our packaging materials out of used paper, so we recycle, so we're really green. And we're proud out of this. We consume many thousands of tons of the used paper each year, or even each month, because we are really big ones. And we have many prizes as a greener company within Kazakhstan. And we again proud out of this. Of course, we have competitors, but honestly speaking, as I said already, we control 2/3 of our market. We're some kind of oligopolist within our area. Well, this is a reality, because looks like it's quite difficult to enter the door into this business, because many investments required, as well to prepare your raw materials base. Yes, we are using used paper, and to collect all of this used paper, it's quite a difficult task, and you have to establish a good supply chain lines with your suppliers, etc. What to say more? Okay, let's now looks like speak more about COVID-19, this virus which is such a popular now around the world. Well, in Kazakhstan we have only, hopefully until this moment, we have only 14 dead cases, if I'm not wrong. Okay, something around 14–15 only, and around 1,500 are sick people until this moment. Well, it's quite difficult to say. I'm talking about the actions were taken by our government. Well, from one side, of course, they're taking care about the citizens. They want to decrease as much as possible the quantity of victims, etc. But of course, business environment, business, especially small size and medium size, are struggling out of the sections, because quarantine now covers almost all territory of our country, because first of all, we turned on this regime within Almaty, the biggest city of Kazakhstan. Later on, Astana, means Nur-Sultan, the new name of our capital, joined to the cities which were closed for the quarantine. Then more and more cities and small village or small regions and other regions joined. And now, if I'm not wrong, the whole territory of Kazakhstan is under quarantine. And the most strongest rules are applied in Almaty again, being the biggest city, around 2 million of population, and then of course more or less same strong rules are applied for Nur-Sultan and Shymkent, the third biggest city within Kazakhstan. And this moment, for example, in these biggest cities, no possibility to run a business for a small enterprises and for the medium enterprises, only if you are producing vitally needed products like foodstuff products, you may do your business. Well, we are supplying by packaging materials almost all of our local producers for foodstuff products. Therefore, we were not closed. We are working all of these weeks, latest weeks, where quarantine regime was established. Well, which kind of quarantine restrictions we are talking about? First of all, the border of Almaty city was closed, and no possibility for the employees to go in Almaty and go out from Almaty. The block posts, there are, if I'm not wrong, 19 block posts were established around the borders of Almaty city. And we are located just in Almaty region, not exactly in the city, but very close to Almaty, let's say. I don't know, maybe 500 meters just from the border of Almaty. And therefore, the border of this quarantine zone, we were inside Almaty city, not outside, but inside this quarantine zone. And most of our employees, especially gray collars, they are from Almaty region, not from Almaty, because to hire employees from suburban territory is quite cheaper, let's be honest. And therefore, as soon as border were closed, so most of our employees were not able to reach the working places. So this was the biggest challenge for us, because how to replace such workers? They are already trained how to operate with our equipment. They were already educated about our rules, procedures, processes, etc., etc. And that was the biggest challenge for us. As I said already, we never closed our production. We are working 24 hours per day, 7 days per week. Yes, we do maintenances, of course, but still and yet we don't close all of the equipment. If we do maintenance in one equipment, means that another equipment is still running, still working. So, and then the another one will be closed for maintenance, and the first one will start producing of the products. And now, until this moment, even we are working with about 60% of our staff. So we lost about 40% of our employees. So we postponed our not key activities for the later period, as soon as quarantine will be disappear. So now we are mainly concentrated on production activities and on dispatching, distributing activities. But hopefully we are not bad. We are more or less in line with our production plans, production and selling and distribution plans. We are very close. Yes, we are a bit less than we planned initially, that's true. But we are not much less. Maybe we lost maybe 10–15% only from our initial plans. As I said already, now we mainly do key activities, as I said, production, and we are concentrated on this. And of course, we are oriented on the distribution, because we do deliver mainly we do deliver our products to our customers. And self-pickup we also using when customers sending their trucks to our premises to pick up, to load the goods, but maybe about 10% only. In 90 or even more than 90% cases, we do dispatch, we do deliver our products directly to the warehouses, to our customers. And this was again a challenge for us. Why? Because again, many trucks, they were blocked outside of this quarantine zone. Especially during first weeks, maybe 10 days, maybe 2 weeks. And later on, of course, the authorities, they understood that it was not a correct decision to completely close the border. And they gave us some permission to be able to move this trucks out inside Almaty city. And we are totally happy at that moment, because we returned back to the normal quantity of our trucks, and we were able to dispatch our products in the full manner. Another challenge which we had, it was of course raw materials and packaging materials supply. Well, we do produce packaging materials, but same time we use of course packaging materials during our own production. And the same situation was about 2 weeks from the first day of the moment when the borders were closed. It was, let's say, some kind of unclear situations. The executors, I mean the policemen, I mean the representative of the city hall, also the representatives of the sanitary bodies who were presented on these blog posts, they were not able to decide, especially first days, who is the leader, who is the person who is taking final decision. So you see at least 3 different state bodies same time in the same place, and they, let's say, discuss it to each other who will take the final decision and to whom we have to apply. So the processes were unclear, especially first days, first weeks. But later on, also with support of Atamiken. Atamiken is our let's say a local organization, yes, who is connecting business, some kind of business association within Kazakhstan, the leading one, the biggest one, and the head of this organization is son-in-law of our president. So you can imagine, I mean our previous president, the leader of the nation, as we call him now. And therefore you can imagine which kind of power have such organization. But they are working not bad really. They are really trying to support. Well, same time the business have to pay the fee, annual fee to this organization, which is quite high, I would say, not a small amount really. But still and yet, they established the group, the working group or something like this, who connected all of the requests coming from the business. And then they distributed these requests into the state bodies with their request, please answer, please clarify, please provide with additional data, please provide with some algorithms, with some process descriptions, etc., etc. And as I said already, the most difficult period was first maybe 10 or maybe up to 2 weeks until the processes were clarified finally, more or less. And now it's much better. And just a few days ago, the president, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, took a decision to prolong our quarantine period until the 1st of May. And now, just today, we finishing sending into this Atamiken industry association or business association. We are finishing sending them our lists of workers and lists of vehicles, trucks, and also light vehicles, which may drive, which may move, if we are talking about persons, within this period. And well, we have so-called EIN, identification number, which is unique for each citizen. So database is based on these unique numbers. So we send them the list of employees with these unique numbers, which is also printed on our IDs actually. And we expect that all of this data will be entered into the special system, which is already now working. Mainly this system is managed by our police. And this system, to this system, our policemen have direct access. And when the policeman stopping you on the street, for example, or when you are driving your car, such a policeman, he is entering this unique number into the system. They have planchettes, the small computers, and then there are two possibilities available: allowed and not allowed. If allowed, you can drive, you can move, you can go with your working activities. If not allowed, then it can be also the penalty. You will pay penalty, which is equal to 10 monthly rates. We call it monthly rate, and it equal to 27,000 tenge, which is about $40, $45, or 40 euro, let's say, penalty. So of course, we as a team leaders, we want that our employees have to be on this list, so later on not to be stopped by the police and not to pay penalties, etc., etc. And as well, personal cars, personal vehicles as well must be entered into the system. And because many of our employees also coming and leaving job within their personal cars. So first 4 weeks it was a mess. In some police computers, small computers, it was shown like allowed. In some computers it was shown like not allowed. And same time in the morning, if you was checked by the police said, okay, you are within the database, go. And in the evening, when you're returning back to your home, another police may check your ID number, this unique number, and was able to say, no, you are not in the database. So you see, looks like, again, it was some kind of a mess or some kind of misprinting or mis-entering data, but it was just first 10 days, something like this, maybe 1-2 weeks at maximum. Later on, everything was clarified and everything became much better. So we
Manas, hi there.
Yes, it was
hi, it's John. Yeah. Could I just ask? Yeah. Absolutely excellent insight into some of the challenges that you're facing as an organization and some of the issues around the small business supply chain, having to focus on the core products, and how you've had to deal with some quite challenging transport issues because of the borders. What I want to do, because we have just around 7 minutes before Nerlan starts, we're going to bring you back as part of the panel at the end. But what I wanted to do was just allow a bit of time for anyone now to either on the chat or raise their hand, and Jasper will admit them, to ask any questions. So any issues around the stories that you've shared, that there is commonality, or whether anyone has got different challenges, we would like to know about them so that we can start to think about the webinars going forward and the topics. So if it's okay, if anyone has got any questions or any observations about what really needs to be happening in terms of the webinar program and the products that CILT can help with, please start to use your chat now. We've had a question actually in from Will, who's one of the panelists, which is, when was the last time that Kazakhstan faced any such strict restrictions for perhaps different reasons?
You know, my answer would be never ever. First of all, we obtained our independence just how many, 30 years ago, yes, in 1991. So 29 years ago, something like this. And I was adult already all of this time. And you know, I don't remember we had such, no, we didn't had such cases. This coronavirus case is really some kind of unique. And you know, what is most worst is that to this crisis as well, another crisis also joined. I mean, the prices for our key commodities. You know that we are the biggest, one of the biggest oil producer within the world. And now you see what's happening with the oil prices and Urals and Brent, the benchmarks for our Kazakhstani oil is went down twice. And this is completely disaster for our economy. Immediately we had devaluation for 20%, something like this. And this is the next disaster, what is happening with our economy. And these both disasters joined each other. And of course, business is under the stress, this is for sure. And what will happen next? What about our economic growth, etc., such a questions, GDP growth. Of course, we will have minus GDP growth this year. This is absolutely for sure.
Thanks, Alice. I think what we'll do, because we want to give time for our experts to speak. We haven't had any specific questions coming in yet. What I would suggest that we move to Jan and to Will, Jan Tomic and to Will Holden, who both could give a perspective wider out of the region. I think what you've experienced is very common across globally in terms of at the moment reactions to particularly the health issues that then impact very severely on supply chain operations. But it would be good, I think, to open it up to have Will and Jan just speak. Jan, are you? I think we've now solved the sound issues. Do you want to kick off just talking from your perspective, which was a perspective on trade and borders and issues arising there in the region?
Thank you very much, Keith. Good afternoon to everybody. Здравствуйте. Я подаваю презентацию с Кипра. So I'm presenting from Cyprus. And I know your company very well. I remember it starting up. I remember when you succeeded getting the EBRD loan. I remember the very first management team there in on the outskirts of Almaty, not far from the FS brewery. Okay, so I'll start. Now, my background is in customs, borders, trade facilitation, and economic development strategy for many, many countries. My background is in Kazakhstan. I was logistics director at Bautino on Kashagan, and I was then on the EU Trasica project, ATB Karek project. Recently came back from Egypt, and now I'm the lead consultant for a USAID project on transit between Central Asia, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. Okay, getting into my presentation. My experience over the years, and unfortunately many, many years, I would say that there is no one magic bullet to any kind of logistics or trade, and certainly no magic bullet to COVID-19 logistics. I believe that instead, there is much of a need for a holistic approach to the behind the border and at the border management and procedures. And what that means is that instead of taking a reactive position, a reactive set of actions, governments and business community need to be a little bit more proactive than they have been. And that's not just Kazakhstan, certainly in the UK. I see that. It's very reactive, not proactive. So what I'm going to do during my presentation, very briefly, I'm going to describe 3 issues which I believe all customs administration, border agencies, transport companies, and traders, importers, exporters should consider. And they are, first of all, the customs and border management issues. Secondly, the road transport issues. And finally, the trade policy issues. So very, very briefly, I'm not going to go into very much detail. Keith and John know I have prepared a 10-page paper, and the detail is in that if you require it. So first of all, customs and border management issues. I would certainly consider that, first of all, the handling of medicines and medical supplies must be considered, and the way to handle that is with reference to the WCO, World Customs Organization, resolution on the appropriate handling of cargoes during natural disasters. And as you know, this is a natural disaster. Okay, so there is also World Health Organization guidance on international traffic under COVID-19. In addition, should use risk management. So if Customs and Border can use risk management, identify those medical supplies, medical equipment, PPE, shipments that are going in and out, they should be given priority. Next, increase the level of internal and external border agency cooperation. Each agency can no longer, in my opinion, act as an island, right, as a silo. They must share information electronically. They must do joint inspections at a safe distance. And all of the agencies, customs, border management, phytosanitary, health, agriculture, standards, must really get together and get their act together. That can be easily done. There are memorandums of associations, memoranda of understanding models out there that can be easily used within about 2 or 3 hours. You could do that. Next, using international COVID-19 good practices for getting medical supplies, PPE, equipment across the borders. There are some very good international good practices already in Brazil, the European Union, People's Republic of China, Belarus, Kazakhstan, for example, has changed its requirements for drivers and trucks coming from countries experiencing cases of COVID-19, because drivers no longer have to change vehicles when arriving at Kazakhstan's border crossing points. Other international good practices include Azerbaijan. They've introduced transit green corridors between Azerbaijan and Iran. Russian Federation has introduced good practices. Okay, drivers of international road transport are no longer mandatory 14-day quarantine. European Commission have introduced a whole raft of good practices because freight transport, road transport across borders and internally is viewed as essential. UK has introduced a number of different practices with awarding more AEO, authorized economic operator certificates. So it's easier for traders and their brokers and freight forwarders to get the necessary items across the border and into the country. Because you know, we've got a lack of PPE in the UK. Other items I would recommend companies to do, but also agencies, border agencies to do, create a checklist of measures to support the business continuity and protect the frontline staff. I've done a whole raft of bullet points for that, which you can refer to if you need to, okay? Create a checklist of measures to facilitate safe border trade, and this means the handling of emergency and relief consignments, and what people need to do. And I think Kazakhstan is in a very good situation because it does have a powerful business association. It's very well connected. I know, I've worked with it, and it does have influence, as you know. But what you need to ask them is, have they acted on the WCO communique of the 9th of March? Has it been considered? Has it been implemented? So that's what Attica could do for you. As I've said, you need to look at the enhancement of risk management. I've done bullet points on there. Increase internal and external border agency collaboration. I've done a number of bullet points there, what needs to be done. In addition, and this is important, and from my opinion, my viewpoint, I've seen a lot of countries, I've been helping them with IT. I've been introducing national single window in a number of countries, and I know Kazakhstan is on that path. Excellent. I've done it in Afghanistan, Egypt, and in many, many other countries, Pakistan. And those countries that have moved forward their IT agenda for customs and other border agencies are now seeing the benefits during these lockdown periods because they can exchange digital documents safely with digital signature, you know, so encryption. They don't need to see each other. They just exchange information, and information here, moving goods is the key. So what can you do in the meantime? You've got to accelerate digitalization in customs, border management, SPS, and in the other border related agencies. I've done a whole load of bullet points there as well. Okay, road transport issues. Transport of goods and services. Well, the easy one we all know is introduce green lanes, but that's not just limited to green lanes. A lot of obstructions are taking place at the moment. There are 40-kilometer, 4-kilometer queues of traffic at the Bulgarian-Turkish border because, you know, again, governments have been reactive, not proactive. They haven't foreseen what they should be doing, and they're only reacting later. And some of the things that they've brought in don't particularly work to the advantage of the Turkish government or the Turkish people. The other things I would mention very briefly is getting rid of the restrictions on the transport of goods, especially for public health. That is transparent, and you know, it's there. We know it's not rocket science, but a lot of countries are, I don't know, it's still not quite there yet, including the UK. Some countries have reduced all road tolls for trucks, for instance, China. Okay. Joint agency checks at the border. You know, instead of Kazakhstan doing customs, I've seen this, doing one check on an import, then they hand the truck over to another agency, then that agency hands it over to another agency, and the truck is still there 4-6 hours later. Gentlemen, ladies, joint inspections at a safe distance, all of the people together, one inspection. And that's what I would call integrated border management, the agencies coming together. You can go further, and this is what I've been doing in the Balkans. We've been introducing combined border management where one customs agency and one border management guard will do the import. The opposite customs and the border management on the same border will do the export. So the truck only gets one check. Now, in these days, you only get a pre-arrival document check. So if you're carrying medical goods, you don't even stop, because really in pre-arrival, you know, that means you've got the information, you've got the truck registration number, you just check his passport and the truck goes. So the check takes about 5 to 10 minutes instead of 4 to 2 hours or even 1 to 2 days, as in Central Asia. Okay, so combined border management needs to be looked at, can be done quite easily. Okay, the other thing that happens in a lot of borders in Central Asia and the Caucasus is transshipment. Now is the time to eliminate transshipment. Okay, but all countries need to implement a scheme where the truck gets in, but the driver can't follow. You know, the driver is as important as the truck, as we found out in the UK right now. We are now suffering in the UK because a lot of drivers have gone into self-isolation and a lot of trucks are coming off the road, and our hospitals and clinics and care homes desperately need the PPE. So we've brought the army in, but it's still not enough. So the key thing to look at borders is allowing the foreign driver in the truck, as long as obviously he's been tested for temperature and he hasn't got a temperature. I come on to trade policy issues now very briefly, and I'm sorry I'm not describing each bullet point in in detail, because otherwise I'd be here for 2 or 3 hours. Okay, as we all know, all developing countries, as we found out in the UK, which is a developed country, we are reliant on imports of COVID-19 products. So obviously the answer is don't make it difficult to import those products. And certainly China is now making it very easy to export those products. But a lot of countries have introduced export restrictions. So in my opinion, that really is a no-no. It's increasing the price. Now, for developing countries, that is a serious impact. My trade policy recommendations, very quickly. These are do's, not don'ts. These are do's. Do facilitate access to essential COVID-19 related medical goods and supplies. And I've done a whole list of issues and recommendations. Do support exporters to maintain jobs and foreign exchange earnings. Do please contribute to microeconomic policy efforts to shield the economy from COVID-related downturn. Okay, and some examples of good and bad practices. Okay, good practices, Myanmar, 2% advanced income scheme, no withholding tax, right? Bangladesh has removed all tariffs on COVID-19 related products. China cut all VAT on medical services, masks, protective clothing, blah, blah, blah. Thailand exempted all face masks from import VAT and reduced time waiting for VAT refunds to 15 days. There are a lot of bad practices out there, including the United Kingdom, who have implemented multiple export curbs on medical supplies. Okay, and I'll end there. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Excellent, thanks, Jan, and the wider audience. We've asked Jan to be a part of these webinars going forward, and as you can see, he brings in a huge amount of knowledge. He's been sending me papers for a number of weeks now that have been very useful for some of our bulletins. So we'll bring Jan back in. Some of those topics are big topics, and you can see, so it may seem from Central Asia region that it's the current crisis is not easy to make the right decisions, and certainly the good practices are, as he mentioned, the UK is not necessarily at the moment a great area for some of the good practices, but we're all learning very fast, so we need to learn together on this. I want to bring in Will now. So Will Holden is the second expert we've invited specifically for today to just give you an introductory talk on what he does. As you'll see, he has a very different background and set of experiences. So we'll give the floor to Will, and then we'll wrap up at the end, particularly now we've got Nurlan and Ibek from CILT Kazakhstan, who then want to just explain how we're approaching the current crisis through CILT Kazakhstan's viewpoint. So Will, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So yeah, this is Will Holden. I'm from Ireland, semi-permanently based in Erbil, Kurdistan, Iraq, 4 out of the last 6 years. I've got 25 years experience plus working in supply chain logistics, mainly in Ireland and the UK. I was actually on the board of the Chartered Institute back in 2008 to 2012, if I'm not mistaken. Never forget those days. Over the last 10 years, I've sort of transitioned into the humanitarian emergency logistics field, and that's really where I've worked and focused on for these last 10 years. So I would be definitely considered an emergency management expert, and it's something I was discussing with some of the people here will know, George Fenton. I was speaking to last night about this very fact, that while there's many people within the industry who are obviously very well capable, highly experienced within their normal commercial field, in emergency management, the rules of the games change. And they change overnight, and they change quickly, and they may change today, and they may change tomorrow. To be flexible, to be agile is something you take to the nth degree in emergency management. It's something that never ends. So some of the areas and some of the countries I've worked in relation to emergency management include not just Iraq and Kurdistan, where I now am based, Afghanistan. Yemen during the cholera epidemic in 2017. I've done training and development in China, Laos, Cambodia. Worked on various large-scale projects in Turkey for northwest Syria, actually, Idlib. And then in the Greece refugee crisis of 2016 into 17. And as I said, I've been here in Iraq and Kurdistan from December 2017 up to the present moment in time, where I am sitting in a lovely apartment but can't really go anywhere. In relation to COVID-19, I'll just jump in here very quickly. So because of my experience and network in the commercial world, going back to the mid-2000s in relation to the medical supply chain, I have had people reaching out to me for the last, since January actually, it hasn't happened just yesterday or today, asking for my advice, my support in relation to gaps and challenges that people have. It could be buyers, it could be sellers, it could be governments, it could be NGOs, various different organizations from very small to very large quantities. All of these COVID-19 emergency response items are available. The problem we have is that people don't know where to source them outside and above the normal standard routes, which is either certain countries in the world are famous for medical devices. For example, Ireland, that's how I got into the industry in the mid-2000s. A huge cluster of medical device manufacturers, pharmaceutical suppliers, and so on in Ireland. The US, obviously, most of them come from there. Switzerland's another big producer, Germany, Austria, and so on in Europe. There's some in Turkey, quite a few in India, but then India is closed for business, halas, as they say here. And then China. But also outside of those areas, there's other producers, not as big, but are available. And again, that's what I've been trying to do, is trying to bring the different actors together and just do some introductions and meetings. So over the last few weeks, and projects we're working on right now, this moment is in relation, just to give you a sample of the products and services that we're trying to help. We're trying to source chloroquine for a research and development project in the EU. Millions of all PPE for various parts of the world. Field hospitals, emergency field hospitals, COVID-19 ready, including all equipment, are available. What else have we got? We have melt blown. So it's one of the products which is used specifically for the clinical face masks, which is one of the, it goes in the insert, and that stops the transmission of the COVID-19 virus itself. So we're trying to put various different people together. So I'm sort of a conduit here, sitting in my humble abode in Kurdistan. And the magic of the internet means I can sort of put people together from all sides of the world, from California, New York, Turkey, Austria, China, Australia, Dubai, and so on, and everybody here as well. Separately then, and this is something we've been working on here for the last year and a half in Kurdistan, by the way, is working and developing concepts to improve the medical supply chain for the Kurdistan government itself. So this was long before the COVID-19 issue, and we actually met them in December, funnily enough. So these were issues we've been looking at here for a long time, and it's one of the reasons why I decided to set up shop here, is because I saw over a period going back to 2016 now, 2014 actually, huge supply chain logistics gaps. And so I mentioned in the slide then as well, I was really focusing on capacity development training, as John knows very well. And one short course which developed an introductory certificate in procurement and logistics humanitarian context, which is endorsed by CILT International. And we've been delivering that here for the last 18 months or so. Very successful. But again, it's just a starting step in order to bring commercial logistics courses here. So that was our focus. And only a few months ago, November, December, as we're delivering the course in Mosul, delivered a course in Erbil, delivered a course in Amman in Jordan between November and December last year. And we were even talking internally, one of my colleagues here, about changing the name from the Emergency Logistics Team, which is the name of the business, to something else. Because I said, we're not really working in emergencies anymore. We're working in capacity development, training, all very normal stuff. And then COVID-19 comes along. So COVID-19 comes along, and what that brought to the fore was the difference in skills between your standard supply chain logistics experts and what we do, to be honest. You know, some people are playing soccer, some people are playing rugby. I don't know what we're playing, okay? We're in the middle somewhere, it's all over the place. But we're used to this, okay? I've done this many times, and that's what I was speaking to George last night about this as well. We've got many different ways we're trying to help and support various different countries. And at the moment then, I'm also, as an advisor, working on Spain, Greece, Croatia, Ireland, Iraq, Kurdistan, New York, and wherever else. Whoever just sends me a message, I've just put sort of have an open door policy virtually for people to contact me in relation to advice, a phone call, Skype call, whatever, in order to help people to get through this. Because you need to react quickly, instantly. In emergency, you do not have time to stop and think too much. You're going to act now, learn from your mistakes, you'll make lots of them, and then move to the next step.
Thanks, Will. That again for the audience will be available for these webinars going forward, and both for Will and for Jan. I think we haven't had a lot of questions today on the screens, but if there are specific areas that are critical in both of their areas of expertise from the Central Asian region, we would welcome those, and we can then have a focused review of those at the next webinar. So please do send up any points that you want us to cover in detail, or any particular questions, and use IBEC and Nerland for that locally. We've had a very good first session, I think, here. We proved the technology, and thanks very much to Jan, Will and Manas, who gave us the expert input. Do look out for the next date, which will be coming up shortly. And as Nerland said, we've got 4 key topics that we're looking to cover globally, plus dive into areas where you really need some support and help. And we can bring into that our whole network of global experts from around the world. And we've got others on standby for forthcoming sessions. So I think that's it for today. Thank you very much. We have had more participants at the end than we had at the start, so that's always very good. And thank you all for participating, and have a good evening over there in Central Asia. Bye.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Sağ olunuz.
Sağ olunuz. Rahmet.
Rahmet. Жақсы.